Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lonely Sauna podcast, and this is episode 17 of my side quest. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about some of the boxing that happened over the weekend. I say this weekend, by the time this video comes out, it'll be a couple of weeks later. But the boxing that happened was Fulton v Figueroa for the WBC Featherweight Championship, and then a title eliminator at light heavyweight against David Benavidez and David Morrell. I guess we'll talk about the WBC Featherweight Championship fight first. And we had Figueroa v Stephen Fulton Jr. Of course, Stephen Fulton was a former champion at, I believe, Super Bantamweight and lost his championship to Naoya Inoue, which there's no shame in losing to Inoue at all. Inoue's a pound-for-pound great, unbeaten, knocks everyone out. And we've made videos about Naoya Inoue and how great he is and what's next for him. So we're not really going to talk about Inoue too much, but Stephen Fulton is one of the better, or one of the best American boxers at the lower weight classes. We've seen it in a long time. I think maybe some people might be put off because they see that one loss on his record, but it's boxing, fights happen, people can lose fights, and Naoya Inoue is an absolutely world-class opponent, so no shame in losing to him. And then he fights Figueroa for the WBC Featherweight Championship, and Steve, I think, what's his name? Something Figueroa. I've never heard of this guy before. The only time I mentioned this guy before was in a previous side quest episode when I talked about him being a potential opponent for Naoya Inoue should he go up to featherweight. So I really had no expectation of what to expect to see from Figueroa when coming into this fight. You know, I'm expecting to see something. You're a world champion, bro. You're a world champion boxer. I'm expecting you to show me something. But in this fight, we pretty much saw Fulton shut him down and outwork him. I think it was one of these fights where Figueroa was just on the front foot, but really doing nothing. He would be throwing these shots, but they'd be pity-patter shots, super slow. Fulton just looked levels above Figueroa when they fought. Fulton was landing the cleaner work. It was one of these fights where, to the untrained eye, you'd look at it and you'd be like, okay, well, Figueroa's pushing the pace a bit. He's trying to walk him down, but in reality, Fulton's just setting traps and Figueroa's just walking into everything. And I even saw comments under the fight that, is Figueroa like the slowest world champion I've ever seen? Like, he very well may be. Like, Stephen Fulton truly outclassed this guy, and I'm not that familiar with these lower weight classes in boxing, but Figueroa looks like he could be one of the worst world champions I've seen in a long time, because to get dominated like that in a world championship fight, considering you're the champion defending this belt as well, it's not like you're a challenger where you've never really been tested before and you're coming in against a world caliber opponent and you're just not at the level. Figueroa was the champion in this fight. Coming into this fight, he was the champion. And got... I mean, maybe to those... Again, like I said, to the untrained eye, this fight may have looked, at times, maybe competitive because Figueroa was... He was throwing, and he was walking him down, but to those who truly know boxing, you know that Stephen Fulton is just... He's just toying with him. You know, really... It didn't even look like Fulton really had to go into third or fourth gear. He could cruise at first gear, second gear, and was cruising his way to a 12-round decision. And that's what he'd done. And now he's a two-weight world champion. So fair play to Stephen Fulton, because he's a fighter I've known for a long time. Not personally, obviously, but a fighter that I've known for a while. And, of course, was excited when that fight against Inoue got announced, because I'm thinking this is a serious opponent for both sides. This is a serious challenge for both sides. Of course, he was unlucky in that fight. Not unlucky. I mean, Naoya Inoue is a world champion. But then he's moved up to featherweight and he's found success there, making him a two-weight world champion. You know, Fulton's a serious fighter in these divisions, and maybe it's one of those moments where you kind of come in wrong place, wrong time, where Stephen Fulton's coming to the top of a division at super bantamweight at the same time that Naoya Inoue's in his absolute peak. You know, these things happen in boxing. He's moved up to featherweight and he's now found success there, and he's a WBC featherweight champion, following Figueroa not putting up very much resistance at all, but a respectable win nonetheless. And at the end of the day, he got the job done, and he's now a world champion again. So you can't take anything away from Stephen Fulton, because Stephen Fulton Jr. done exactly what he's expected to do in this fight. You know, land your shots, set your traps, win the fight, dominate him, don't take too much damage, and that's exactly what he done. Figueroa, I was seeing him getting cooked in the comments, and probably rightfully so, because this dude did not look like he was at the level. I don't know if this was an off night for him. Like I said, I've never heard of this guy before. I've never watched him fight, that's for sure as well. I've never seen him fight before. So I don't know if this is maybe an off night, maybe it was a bad weight cut, maybe some personal issues, or maybe this is just how he is. Maybe he's just not a world level boxer. Perhaps it could be possible, but we'll see what's next for Stephen Fulton. I mean, to be fair, now you're in a way maybe looking for that rematch. He may move up another weight class, go up to featherweight, and maybe get that rematch against Stephen Fulton, Inoue v Fulton 2 for the featherweight championship. As far as these sort of lower weight classes go, that's one of the bigger money fights that he could get. But we'll see what's next. We'll see what's next for those guys. I think Fulton, like I said before, Fulton's a world-class fighter, and I don't know the featherweight division that well, but I'd be interested to see if anyone can kind of rise to that level and even beat Fulton again and take that championship away from him. So it'd be, interesting to see. But yeah, let's go on to the light heavyweight title eliminator match against, that was David Benavidez v David Morrell. Now in this fight, we saw David Benavidez largely outwork David Morrell. David Morrell definitely had his moments though, because this guy can bang. And at times would pin David Benavidez against the ropes and land some big shots and sort of unload. But for the most part, over the 12 rounds, Benavidez just outworked Morrell. That being said, there was a knockdown right towards the end of the 11th round, which when I watched it, and I watched it back a couple of times, it looks like it was just a slip, but the ref counted it, so it counts as a knockdown. But I think by that point in the fight, David Benavidez had pretty much won the majority of the round, so a knockdown, a standing 8 count, wasn't going to sway the decision too much in reality. But you never know how these boxing judges are, because they can often be very corrupt. And an upset / robbery can happen at any moment in boxing. But luckily, David Benavidez, not luckily, he deserved to win the fight. It wasn't a robbery at all. David Benavidez definitely won that fight, in my opinion. And to be fair to David Morrell, he definitely put up a great performance and showed that he's, for a guy who was only 11-0, now 11-1 coming into that fight, a guy who's got tremendous potential in this division. I know people are saying this guy's a young prospect. David Benavidez is only a year older than this guy. He is a young prospect nonetheless. David Morrell's only 28, so he's still a young prospect for the most part. He's still got, he's probably coming into his prime now. And like I said, losing to David Benavidez is no shade at all. No, there's nothing wrong in that at all. Because David Benavidez he's beaten everyone else he's faced. Caleb Plant, other guys, I can't even remember off the top of my head, but David Benavidez has got a very good resume, and comes on to, he wins against David Morrell and then goes on to become not probably the number one contender for the light heavyweight championship, I'm assuming. I'm assuming David Benavidez, he'll want to get the Canelo fight, rightfully so. I think that makes a lot of sense, but it looks like Canelo's going to be facing Terence Crawford next. So I'm imagining David Benavidez will be next in line, who wins the Beterbiev v Bivol 2 rematch. I think that makes a lot of sense for both sides. Benavidez is a former champion at super middleweight, still undefeated, and now just beat David Morrell, so he's probably going to be the undisputed sort of number one contender for the championship. I'm assuming Canelo goes down to super middleweight or middleweight and fights against Crawford. Then that sort of takes Canelo out of the light heavyweight title talks for a bit, at least for next. I'm assuming for the rest of this year, that kind of takes him out of those talks. So Benavidez seems like he's the logical next step. He beat Morrell in pretty dominant fashion. Morrell was definitely competitive, but for the most part, Benavidez kind of just did what he done to everyone and just outworks them. He wasn't able to. At no point did he really look Morrell was in a ton of danger, which is a bit rare for David Benavidez because he's knocked out a lot of guys, stopped a lot of guys, and he's got big power and a lot of speed as well. So yeah, fair play to David Morrell for being able to take those shots, because that's not easy. Not just anyone can take those shots from David Morrell, but from David Benavidez, sorry. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for the light heavyweight division. It's an interesting division. There's a lot of talent in the light heavyweight division at this point. A lot of talent. There's Beterbiev, Bivol, Canelo, Benavidez. Who else have they got there? Anthony Yard, I guess. Anthony Yard, a fighter I like a lot. I think we'll probably talk about Anthony Yard at another time, another episode. At one point was one of my favourite fighters, and still kind of is. Still is. Still got a lot of potential and a lot to give the game. But yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense for light heavyweight division. Benavidez up next. Fulton as WBC featherweight champion. Maybe he defends the title a couple more times and gets a Naoya Inoue rematch at featherweight. Maybe Inoue wins another world title at another weight class, making him the solidified pound-for-pound number one. If he wasn't already, in my opinion, he should be the pound-for-pound number one, but hey-ho. We'll see what happens. Boxing's a funny sport. But yeah, that's been it from me. It's been episode 17 of the Seth Solo Side Quest, and I'm out. Peace.